What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 10 of Driving to the Draft. We're up to 10 episodes. I'm super happy. Thank you guys for all the support. If this is the first one you're watching, welcome. But if not, if you've seen others, thank you. Thank you either way. So quick channel intro before we get started. This coming Friday, in 2 days, we are going to have our new episode of Team Titty Sprinkles in the Fate of Delmark coming out, so definitely give that a watch. If you haven't seen the other ones, go ahead and catch up, or if you've missed a couple, go catch up on those. Those will be there. We had this episode 9 of this came out last week, so give that a look. I'm running out of topics for drafting. I'm sure I'll come up with other things to talk about other stuff, but as always, if you guys have suggestions, let me know in the comments down below, on Facebook, on Twitter. Those links are in the description. If you have any ideas of topics you want me to talk about, whether it be about drafting, whether it be not about drafting, talk about Magic, talk about RPGs, doesn't really necessarily matter, let me know, and it can be a topic of discussion. In this episode, we are going to be talking about power level. So, pretty relative term that I'm sure you've heard before. Maybe you know what it means, maybe you don't. So really quickly, what power level is power level of cards. So a basic land doesn't really have much power level, right? I mean, if you need that color, if you're in the middle of a game, it is situational. So the power level of an island goes drastically up if you have blue cards in your hand that need to be played and you don't have any islands on the field. But usually, just by itself, looking at a card, the power level of an island is not high, by any means. Now, power levels of other cards, like we talked about bomb rares, we talked about removal, we've talked about having creatures and stuff, and all of that is important, but I also want to talk about the fact that when you're looking at a pack of cards, in your own head, you're not necessarily saying, okay, let me think about the power level of these cards, but that is technically what you're doing, right? So you're going to look at a pack, whether it's pack 1, pick 1, or pack 3, pick 14. You're going to look at those cards, and you're going to assess the power level of those cards. And in the beginning, you're really just picking the best card in the pack. But as you go along, in pack 2, you're not necessarily just picking the best card in the pack. So we talked about picking for value, so if you're taking a valuable card, that's fine. But otherwise, if you open up a bomb rare and it's not in your colors, but there's a really good uncommon, maybe it's one of the top 5 uncommons, as we've discussed in previous videos, maybe you open a top 5 uncommon in your colors, well, then maybe you don't take that bomb rare. Now, if this was pack 1, and you opened that bomb rare, you would take that over the uncommon, definitely, because it's a bomb. But now you're not in those colors, right? You're in pack 2 or you're in pack 3, and you know what color or colors you're going to be in. And so that kind of changes the math. Clearly, it's not actually math, but it changes the math a little bit, or it should, in your own head, for the power level of the cards that you're looking at. Because now if it's not in your color, the power level of it drops drastically. If you can't play it, it basically is worth nothing to you. Now, there's hate drafting, which is if you're getting towards the end and you don't really think that your deck needs any of the cards that are in a pack, but you see a card like a bomb rare or one of the top 5 commons or uncommons, and it's not in your colors, you can take that card to make sure that the guy to your right or the guy to your left or wherever doesn't get it, so that if you play him in round 1 or round 2, you don't have to face off against the card that you just hate drafted. So that's technically a viable strategy, but if you devote too many picks to hate drafting, then you don't have a deck, right? You just have a deck, you just have a pool full of cards that make your opponents mad that you took them. And that's not helpful to you in terms of winning. That's just a kind of tertiary strategy that you should have if you don't see anything for you in that one pack, but you see something really good for somebody else. Go ahead and take that and hate draft it. But back to power level. Power level changes. The power levels of cards will change from draft to draft, from pick to pick, and from pack to pack, as difficult and annoying as that is to say. Because when you're picking those cards, you're looking at what your deck can play, and then once you're done looking at that, maybe there are 3 black cards in a pack, and you're playing black. Okay, so now you assess the power level of those cards. and maybe there's an uncommon and two commons, and the uncommon is clearly stronger, but there's a good black common removal spell. For example, since we're in Oath of the Gatewatch right now, I'll say Oblivion Strike, which is 3 generic mana and a black mana for a spell that would exile target creature. I believe it's a sorcery. So you exile target creature. It's removal. Removal is very important. Now, if that uncommon is a creature, and maybe it costs a lot of mana, maybe it has an amazing effect, that's fine, but if you have a bunch of creatures and not enough removal, the power level of that really good creature in your mind should go down. And the power level of that Oblivion Strike, or that piece of removal, even though it's common, should go up. Now, does that necessarily sway you to pick it? It really is situational. It depends on what you have in your deck. It depends on what the card costs, mana cost-wise. But all of these things should be playing through in your mind when you're picking a card for the power level of that card. And with each pick that you make, if you realize that you have a ton of 2-drops, meaning 2 mana costing spells, then if you see a 2-drop and a 4-drop, and they're both close, but maybe the 2-drop's a little bit better, if you have a ton of 2-drops and you want something that will cost 4, so that on turn 4 you can play a 4-drop instead of 2 2-drops, then maybe that 4-drop goes up in your mind, and the 2-drop goes down. So the power level will change. And the other thing to consider, so you're trying to build what you're going to hear people call a curve. And that means that if you have a card, if you have cards that cost 1 mana, 2 mana, 3, etc., that's your curve, right? You want to be able to, on turn 1, play a 1-drop creature or a 1-drop card of some kind. On turn 2, you want to play something for 2. On turn 3, you want to play something for 3, etc., and you want to curve out, playing stronger and stronger cards as you go along, so that you don't necessarily have what will happen a lot to a lot of different players, which is, you know, okay, turn 1, I'm going to play a land and pass my turn to you. Turn 2, I'm going to play a land and pass my turn to you because I don't have anything. So you're basically just playing nothing and then nothing. And then on turn 3, maybe you play something for 3. And on turn 4, do you have something for 4? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But the importance of curve is making sure that you have something to play every turn. And that makes sure that you're never losing, right? You're always playing something, you're always putting up something against your opponent for them to have to deal with. And that's really important. It's really important to keep up the pressure, right? You don't necessarily ever want your opponent to just look at what you have on the field and realize that your lands are all tapped, and or you have no cards in your hand, and the creatures on your field don't bother them at all. Okay, well, now what? Well, it's probably pretty simple for them to say, okay, well, now I don't have to worry about it. I'll just attack. Or I'll just, play these spells that I don't have to worry about my opponent having any response for. So you want to be able to curve out, and that's important with power level, as we were talking about, because that means that if you have a ton of high drop cards and they're really, really good, those high drop cards, with each high drop card that you pick, 4 mana, 5 mana, 6 mana, etc., with each high drop card that you pick, the next high drop card that you see should go down in power level more and more and more, because you don't need a ton of high drop cards. You'll play nothing in the beginning and you're gonna lose. So you may have the best cards in the world, but if they all cost 6 and you're dead on turn 5, then, because your opponent played something on turn 1 and then on turn 2 and then 3 and then 4 and is able to kill you, then it doesn't matter how good those 6 drop cards are, because you will never get a chance to play them. So that's another way that power level kind of changes the things that you're picking. So, a little bit of a shorter episode this time, at least I think. Check the timestamp down below. Maybe you'll say that you thought it was kind of long, but just talking about power level and talking about power level of cards as well as your curve. Your curve is very important in limited formats, in draft, etc., and sealed. I mean, sealed, you have less control over that, because you're opening a sealed pack or sealed packs of cards and you just have to take those, as opposed to in draft where if you're looking at a bunch of cards and you notice that they're low drop versus high drop, you can kind of make that decision in your own head. So the only other thing I'll mention, I technically forgot to mention this, so I want to throw this out there, is there are certain cards, and they can be bomb rares or they can be commons or uncommons, but there's also something called a finisher. And makes perfect sense if you guys, if you think about it for a second. But a finisher is literally just, you play that card and it's what will help you win. It's what will basically finish, the game right then and there, right? So whether it's a big Eldrazi, a high drop creature, a burn spell of some kind, play it, right? So, that's something else that might go up in power level, is if you do not have a finisher yet, you may see a finisher and a really, really good card in a pack, but you need that finisher. And so that finisher goes way up in power level and the other powerful card goes down. So there you go. Talking about power level, talking about curve. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, as you always have, 10 episodes makes me really happy. I love making this show. I hope you guys love watching it. Again, let us know. Give us some feedback if you have ideas for topics down in the comments section or on Facebook or on Twitter. Those links are in the description. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. Check out all the other videos that we have on our channel. Check the annotations up above. Check out Team Titty Sprinkles in the Fate of Delmark. I know we've got some Oath of the Gatewatch pack openings. We've got some Battle for Zendikar pack openings. Really excited. Looking forward to Shadows over Innistrad coming out. When that comes out, keep an eye open for that. Definitely subscribe. You'll find out when all those videos come out. And guys, as I always say, I've been Joe, and in whichever video you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, guys.